let us go to the Dude Maker hotline and say hello to George of the Dongle, not George of the Jungle. He is investigative journalist George Webb, who is busier than a one-armed wallpaper hanger these days and keeping up with the latest controversies. And there seems to be a new one every day with the attempted assassination of President Trump, which I was just talking about, and he was talking to Dr. Phil about. George, good morning. Where are you today, brother?
I'm in the Rocky Mountains, a little bit west of the Rockies, and so that's why I messed up the time zone yesterday. I should have been on yesterday. But I didn't realize Idaho had 2 time zones. Who knew? Small state. But anyway, long up and down state, I figured it only could have one time zone. But yeah, you mentioned the David Lee Roth character, and the Trump assassination now has David Lee Roth. It has him jumping with leather pants with Eddie Van Halen playing the Super Licks while David Lee Roth is doing a somersault on stage. The CEO of American Glass Research, AGR, is the key guy at the key spot in the assassination, as the assassination's happening, as Trump's taking stage and the music stops and Trump starts speaking at 6:05. He is in the perfect position of not only filming crooks at the retaining wall, crooks at the picnic table, crooks getting up on the roof, but then also the TMZ video of crooks that we see with his feet near the roof's edge.
Right.
And he's got a bullhorn, and he's directing traffic. And then he gets on the police radio after the assassination and starts directing police traffic. So that's odd behavior. Plus, he lets a whole bunch of people on his property without being checked for weapons. So that's the David Lee Roth character. His name is Henry Dimmick, Dimmick, the same as the Dimmick that was running national security for Biden. So, yeah, this has really turned into a fun story, to say the least.
Unless you're Trump and your ear is still recovering.
Well, that's that too. And by the grace of God, he turns his head.
Now, I want to go back 2 days because there's again, every time I talk to you, it's like, dude, so much has happened since the last time we talked. Okay, there is a radio. Okay, there's a new piece of body cam footage that is released, and the cop has got the body cam on, and he's running, and it looks like he's facing one of the AGR buildings, and over the body cam, we hear the guy saying that I'm hearing he's affiliated with AGR. I'm hearing he's affiliated with AGR. What? Okay, my mind is racing, and I said I can't wait to talk to George to find out what he's found out about this. Number one, how is it even possible that a police officer in the chaos after the shooting, who could possibly have told him that?
Well, there's another radio, and these radio excerpts are the things that seem to be quelled by the FBI. They really want to stomp them down. But let's say you were upstairs in the second floor, and let's say you did the shot. Okay. But you cut your hand, and you went downstairs, and you're bleeding in the sink, right? Which we know that's another radio excerpt. There's a guy bleeding in the sink. There's blood in the hallway, right? You go down there and you look at the guy bleeding in the sink, and he's got an AGR badge on. Well, that's how you could get the impression that the guy who they're chasing inside that building, the second shooter or the first shooter, and Trump's Crooks is just a spotter maybe. But that's how you could get that impression. I don't know why it came out. You can't put it back in the radio. You know what I mean? It's sort of like messages from the bottle. Once they come out, you can't put them back in, and you got to deal with them, and you got to find the person who said that and ask him what his state of mind was at that time. So that's all we're trying to do is get these people subpoenaed, get them out in front of the American people, get them to put out their disposition for everyone to see transparently.
Okay, I want to. He is George Webb at RealGeorgeWebb1 at x.com and georgewebb.substack.com. Write him, subscribe, go ahead and pay. What is it? $80 for the year, whatever. Worth every penny.
Yeah, or free. Most of it's free, but then the stuff I have to go travel for, I ask, if people want to support that, they do the paid.
Yes, I do. By the way, I am a paid subscriber, so I'm not.
Thank you.
Okay, I had a guy on the show last Friday, George, and I didn't get a chance. I was going to send you the tape. I should have, so you could. I will after this. I'll send you the recording. He is former Army intelligence. He is also former NSA. Okay, so he currently works in cybersecurity and going around telling big businesses they hire him to try and hack into their networks. And then when he does, he tells them, okay, this is how I did it. You need to fix this, right? So this guy is a former operative. He has security. He still has security clearance. He's not allowed to say certain things because he has an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, and sometimes he gets in trouble because Washington will still call him and go like, "You can't do that. Don't go back on anyone's show and say that." So I had him on the show last Friday, and I asked him point blank. I said, "Greg, explain to me the first 24 hours after this shooting and what happened." And then I go down Mike Church and George Webb's list here, okay? This is what he told me. I said, why didn't the FBI swoop in, cordon the area off with have grandma, George Webb's grandmother, take the do not cross this line caution tape, right? Which you said would have been a better preventative to keep Trump and Corey Comparatorial alive than the FBI and the Secret Service. Take the entire area, put the caution tape around it, and say to everyone that was working that day, unless you're getting hauled off in an ambulance because you got injured or you're with someone that got injured, you can't leave. Should they have set up a command center and should they have started the interview process? He goes, Mr. Church, not only should they have done it, that is the actual protocol. They violated their own. No one should have left that arena. No one except the civvies. Every single person with a badge and a gun and a radio and anyone that worked anywhere, concession stand in the AGR building, your boy David Lee Roth, none of them should have been allowed to leave until they had given their first statements. There should have been an army of lawyers that should have been brought in, or paralegals or whatever, stenographers, or just whatever, to record the conversations and to get everyone on the record that day. That's how that investigation should have started. And you and I now know, and the American public and the world knows, that did not happen. So my guy, my reliable intel inside the belly of the beast guy says that right there, something stinks to high heaven, and that is not what should have happened.
Agreed. I mean, you could have easily taken some of the area where the Trump folks were, the 30,000, could have set up a command center. I've had this happen where there was just a potential child kidnapped in a hotel I was in, and the command center came out, Humvees came out, hundreds of cops, police cars. We couldn't leave. And then until we were checked out and gave our IDs, and then we could stand and watch after they had ID'd us. But this was very standard protocol. I've seen it happen, and I've been a part of it. So, they should have set up a platform, a command center, have around-the-clock, 24-hour news press releases, so they could do every 4 hours, let's say, do a press conference to cover all the information so that you could, nip theories in the bud, with information. They've only had one press conference. It was before I got to Butler. It was to show off the guy's new haircut, and they didn't say anything. It was like, my hair looks great, and I can't tell you anything. It's too early in the investigation.
Okay, George Webb, investigative journalist, is on the Dewmaker Hotline with us. Let's go over today's post, and then we're going to go back in time just a moment here. Today's post is about if two separate shots hit Copenhagen and Dutch, that means two shooters. 2 points make a line, and therefore describe the line of fire. What is this post about? And by the way, I'm sure you saw this because I know you're on top of everything. You saw that the Congressional Committee, Republicans and Democrats, there was like 8 of them were out there. The other, today's Wednesday, they were out there Monday. They were on the roof. They walked around the roof. They were all taking pictures. They all look sincere to me. I don't fault any of them or question. Well, maybe some might question their sincerity, but they all look sincere. But George, if that was Monday, that's August the 26th. That's 40 days removed. The evidence is gone. So, I mean, I watched this going like, dude, the only reason you could possibly be here is just to go back over angles. because there's nothing left to investigate. It's all been removed. The FBI scrubbed that thing.
Yeah, power washed it. The angles still tell a story, and that's what this latest post is about. And I still not have had access to the site, but you can prove two shooters with string, basically just rebuild the site where the bleachers were, put, a dummy where, or you could use Kamal Harris.
You repeated yourself.
Yeah, I repeated myself. But I'm sorry, I shouldn't have thrown that in there.
No,
I've never been to Europe, so I should have known better. Anyway, I have been to Europe, by the way. But you put the two, crash test dummies there, right? You put where the exit wounds and the entry wounds are.
Yes.
And you basically take a string and you string out to where along the line of fire those two places are, and you'll get exactly the locations. 2 points make a line. They did it in St. Augustine's Day. They'll do it at 1,700 years from now. It's still 2 points will still make a line. And where that second line leads you, the David Dutch line, leads you into the building, into that second floor window. So this is sort of like the sixth floor of the Texas School Book Depository, only it's the second floor windows of the building behind the roof.
I see the graphic on your post. Maggie, can you? Or she has it. Our crack producer George is all over this. She has the actual visual, so all our fans on Twitter can watch this. Folks, you're seeing right there in screen number 1. You're seeing the lines that George is talking about. Okay, keep going.
Well, so a lot of this still can be recreated, and a lot of these things. I sold 3D printers for a while. You can actually create really realistic 3D printer models. And then they have these little maker fairs, these little schools where they trade the software, the model software, and then somebody else prints out the models. This is what we should be doing right now, is having maker fairs for everybody's back-to-school project of the AGR buildings along with the platform, building it in miniature, because it teaches kids how to do models, how to do angles, geometry, and so forth. And it's a real live use of math, right, that we could get into right now. Because this is, I think, you have to go back to another contemporary of St. Augustine a little bit before, which is the assassination of Caesar.
Yes.
Ended what? Ended democratic rule or Republican rule for 436 years until Augustine, right?
Right.
This is the same sort of thing. If you throw in assassination as potentially a way of doing government, you could end democracy. So this is important. I think this is just as important as the assassination of Caesar. And you mentioned Augustine, who I think picks the ball back up and rekindles the light of hope in government. And of course, God. How about that? I brought your St. Augustine back into it.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. Well, he's my confirmation saint and my patron saint, and so I read him often and I talk about him, and that's why I was reading him today. But let's go back to tell our listeners what do you mean and why, and the part of the post with the pink lines and the yellow and green lines. What is the deflection pattern? And is this new intel, or are you just putting old intel back together?
Oh, but nobody can give me a straight answer. How far apart David Dutch was from Copenhagen. These are two people that are wounded. What I did is I went out to websites and looked at the spread pattern of people doing target practice at 150 yards. And I did hundreds and hundreds of them, and they're all within a 4-inch pattern. Well, if you look at the distance between Copenhagen and Dutch, it's like 4 feet. Sometimes people say 10 feet. Some people say 20 feet. That's impossible to have that kind of spread pattern from one shooter, right? It has to be a second person shooting at a different angle in order to have that kind of deflection between, 4 foot difference between shots 1 and shots 2, right? Or shot 3, however you want to say it. So it just commands, there being a second shooter. And I think once people understand there's a second shooter, all of a sudden the crooks did it isn't good enough, because now there's a second shooter running around somewhere.
Well, the thing is still can't be explained to me, and if they won't release all the body cams, we're never going to know. How did the gun get 10 feet away from where Crooks is lying there bleeding and has bled out? That to me is just a primary policing 101 question. And if you won't provide evidence or at least make a statement as to how that happened, because you're going to have people that are going to be looking at that for 50 years. And they're going to look at that photograph and go like, okay, why is that gun 10 feet? Now, cops have yelled at me and screamed at me, you dummy, you don't know anything about LEO. When they get to the scene, they make sure that the gun is... Do you have to move it 10 feet away? That basically is altering the crime scene, as I would put it. That's an alteration of the crime scene, and the fact that the forensic data was not, Clay Higgins went back out there. You responded to Clay Higgins. Higgins is a firebrand. This guy loves getting in arguments with people. I know that the police, the sheriff of Beaver County, and you had a row on Twitter. Did Higgins say anything to you about you're asking the question about why nothing on the white van, Clay?
No, he hasn't responded to me yet, and it's okay. I mean, I'm a little guy reporter out here. He's a big guy in Washington. I understand, but I do think that there is key evidence, like the white van. They introduced the bloody receipt. They introduced the ladder. It's important not because no ladder was used. I'm not saying a ladder was used finally on the 13th, but it was used in practice on the 8th. We have the IP addresses at the Home Depot. So these are the things I missed a lot is what I call the Clay Higgins thing. There's the white van is in his office like a white elephant, and he misses the white van, the bloody white van. I tend to be a little bit dramatic, but you get the idea is that there's a lot of evidence that has not been considered.
No, and okay, we have 3 minutes left, so let's go over two things. The first thing is this. Let's go back to the guy who is the David Lee Roth guy, who is the CEO of AGR. I don't know because I've never signed one, but I would imagine when you get a contract with the Department of Defense, DOD, and you sign the non-disclosure agreements and everything, I would imagine that one of the things you'd have to do at a facility like Advanced Glass Research is you'd have to provide some sort of security, number one, and some sort of surveillance tape system, number two, to back up that security. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Why didn't it happen at AGR?
Yeah, nowhere to be found, and that is the biggest question of all. How could people doing shatterproof and bulletproof glass for DOD for 80 years, this goes all the way back to World War II, how could there be no cameras? The only way is that they took them down. That's why we have to subpoena David Lee Roth, which his real name is Henry Dimmick. And then there's all sorts of connections. Remember, Oswald got put into the Texas School Books Depository as an employee 6 weeks before, so he would have access. We've got this connection to this Urich guy, potentially now through Dimmick's son in the bike clubs. Hunter is the name of the son of David Lee Roth.
Not another Hunter.
Yeah, another Hunter. And there's a bike club connection. As a matter of fact, they have a big bike, European bike thing called AGR3. He's moving a lot of the factory to Holland, to Delft, Holland, and lab. Looks like they might even Sandy Hook the whole site and move the whole company to Holland now.
Oh, good Lord.
There's also, so there's a lot going on here. The destruction of evidence, we got to get there now before the destruction of evidence.
And then finally, and you're going to have to give me a 30-second answer. Are you excited that Robert Francis Kennedy Jr. may now be a part of a future Trump administration, and maybe we get all those documents from JFK released?
Yes, and that is the one guy who understands that Dick Cheney from 9/11 is the one who started all the gain-of-function research. The one guy I've seen that understands that is Bobby Kennedy Jr. So it's not only getting the old historical documents, it's also unlocking 9/11 and unlocking the whole neocon agenda.
Wow.
So I'm super excited about that.
All right. Can't wait to read your next report, old friend. That's George Webb. Support him at georgewebb.substack.com. georgewebb.substack.com. All right, brother. God bless you, man. We'll talk soon. Stay safe.
God bless you.
Okay, man. Thank you very much.